What really happened just 5 minutes ago behind the closed doors of their happy home? Dara and Jung Woo's warm wave of love has everyone talking, stirring both curiosity and envy. Let red carpet revealed take you inside this intimate moment. Let's find out together right now. 5 minutes ago, in the soft golden glow spilling from the living room window, something happened inside Dara and Jung Woo's home that would have melted even the coldest heart. The night outside was calm, the street below nearly empty. The faint hum of the city softened by the hush of late evening. But within those walls, warmth pulsed through the air like a living thing. It wasn't just the scent of simmering soup or the faint music drifting from the Bluetooth speaker, it was the feeling of love so present. It seemed to hum in every shadow and corner. Dara was in the kitchen, her hair tied back in a loose bun, a soft oversized sweater falling over her shoulders. She wasn't preparing anything extravagant, just a simple dinner of grilled fish, warm rice, and the kind of side dishes that felt like home. It was the way she moved, unhurried and deliberate, made the scene magnetic. Jung Woo stood in the doorway, leaning against a frame, watching her with a quiet smile that carried both affection and the kind of awe you only see in someone who still can't quite believe his luck. The world knew them as celebrities, she, the eternal darling of the music scene, he, the drama star whose charm could light up any screen. But here, in their sanctuary, there was no trace of the public personas they carried so effortlessly. Here, they were simply Dara and Jung Woo, two people who had built a rhythm together, a rhythm made of small, almost invisible rituals. Like the way she always saved him the crispest piece of grilled fish without saying a word. Or how he would slip behind her while she cooked, wrap his arms around her waist, and rest his chin lightly on her shoulder. Not to distract her but to simply feel close. He did exactly that now. She didn't flinch or look up, she just smiled, continuing to stir the soup as if his presence there was the most natural thing in the world. "You're early," she murmured, her voice carrying that familiar softness reserved only for him. "I missed you," he replied simply, his words barely louder than a breath. It wasn't the kind of declaration meant for drama scripts or magazine quotes. It was real. And that made it heavier, more powerful. On the coffee table in the living room, a small vase of fresh flowers, lilies, her favorite, stood in quiet testimony to his earlier trip to the market. Beside it, an open book lay face down, a blanket draped carelessly over the sofa. Their home wasn't spotless, it was lived in. There were shoes by the door, a sweater hanging off the back of a chair, half-finished puzzle on the dining table. To anyone else, it might have seemed ordinary, but to them, it was a landscape of their shared life, painted in familiar details that meant everything. Dinner neared completion. They moved around each other in a silent dance, hands brushing, eyes meeting briefly before darting away again in shy amusement. It was this unspoken language, a glance, a touch, a half-smile, that made their connection so unique. They didn't need to fill every silence with words, the quiet between them was comfortable, like the space between heartbeats. They finally sat down to eat. There was no grand toast or performative romance. He poured her tea before serving himself. She placed an extra spoonful of her favorite side dish on his plate, knowing he'd feign reluctance before giving in. Conversation drifted from mundane updates about their day to half-joking plans for a future vacation. Beneath the casual words was a constant undercurrent, a silent acknowledgement of how rare and precious it was to share life this way. 5 minutes ago, in this very room, something had shifted. Maybe it was the way his hand lingered over hers as he passed the soy sauce. Maybe it was the way she looked at him a beat longer, while carrying a tenderness too deep to hide. Whatever it was, the moment settled into the air, warm and quiet. First hint of spring after a long winter. And then, as the meal came to a close, he set down his chopsticks and looked at her, really looked at her, as though memorizing her face in this light, in this moment. "Do you know," he began, his voice low and almost uncertain, "that every day I spend with you feels like the best day I've ever had?" She froze for just a second, caught off guard not by the sentiment, by the sincerity woven into every syllable. A soft laugh escaped her, not to deflect. "Keep from crying. You're being dramatic," she whispered. "Maybe," he replied, "but it's true." The truth was, this wasn't the first time Jung Woo had said something that left Dara momentarily speechless. He had a way of dropping these quiet confessions into ordinary moments, like stones into still water. sending ripples that lingered long after the sound had faded. Tonight, though, those words carried an extra weight. Maybe it was the ease of the evening, or the way the lamplight seemed to catch in her eyes. But something about this felt like a turning point, a moment they would both remember long after the details of the day had faded. They lingered at the table, neither in a rush to clear the plates. Outside, the wind rattled faintly against the windows, but inside, the air was thick with a kind of warmth that had nothing to do with the heater. He reached across the table, fingers brushing over hers in a gesture so simple it felt like breathing. She didn't pull away. Instead, turned her hand over so their palms met, their fingers lacing together in a slow, deliberate movement. Later, in the living room, they settled onto the couch. She curled into his side, her head resting against his shoulder, while he draped the blanket over both of them. TV played quietly in the background, but neither was watching. They spoke in low voices about the little things, the book she was reading, the recipe he wanted to try next weekend. Memory of a clumsy dance they had shared in the kitchen months ago. Every now and then, they would fall into silence. It wasn't awkward, it was the kind of silence that feels like home. It was during one of those silences that she turned to look at him, fingers tracing lazy patterns along his arm. "No," she said softly. "I think this, us, is my favorite part of the day." He smiled, tilting his head slightly so he could meet her eyes. "Than the stage? More than the cameras," she nodded without hesitation. "More than anything." Warmth between them in that moment, the way their smiles mirrored each other, the way the room seemed to shrink until it was just the two of them, was what could only be described as a warm love wave. And a grand romantic gesture for the world to see. It was a quiet surge, a pulse of connection that needed no audience. The outside world would never fully understand this side of them. Fans saw the red carpets, the interviews, the carefully curated Instagram posts. But those glimpses were only fragments of a much bigger picture. What they shared here, in the safety of their home, was something that couldn't be staged or performed. It was built in the spaces between public appearances, private rituals that no one else was invited to witness. The night deepened. They moved through the rest of their evening with the same easy rhythm, washing the dishes side by side, folding laundry while trading light-hearted banter. Every now and then just to exchange a quick touch or kiss. There was nothing spectacular about it. It was everything. Hours later, as they prepared for bed, she caught his reflection in the mirror and smiled. "You're staring again," teased. He didn't deny it. "I'm making sure I remember this," he said simply. Shook her head, but the smile stayed. And so, 5 minutes ago, and every minute since, the warmth between them had been quietly reshaping the night into something unforgettable. In a world that so often glorifies grand gestures, Dara and Jung had found their happiness in the smallest of moments, in the steady hum of love that filled their home like a familiar song. Some romances are built for the spotlight, dazzling and fleeting. Others, like theirs, built for longevity, crafted in the glow of table lamps, the steam of home-cooked meals, and the comfort of knowing that no matter what the world says, the person beside you will always be there when the night falls. And that, perhaps, is the most beautiful truth of all. Thank you for joining us in this heartfelt journey into Dara and Jung's warm love story. If you enjoyed this article, don't forget to like it, subscribe for more exclusive celebrity stories, and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Do you believe in love as quiet and powerful as this? Your voice keeps our stories alive.